Hello everybody, thank you so much for stopping by. I am ChitChad and welcome to another new episode in the ABC Challenge. For today, we're drawing a character that represents the letter C, and a little game just recently dropped. If you've been on YouTube at all, you've probably heard about it. It's a little title called Cuphead.
Well, Cuphead and his pal Bugman, they like to roll the dice.
Ever since I first saw this game, I have been absolutely hooked. Not only does it look like a fun, challenging game, but it's no secret that I love old school animation. And this thing is a 1930s, 1940s cartoon brought to life. So to celebrate the launch of this game, I thought it would be really fun to draw this character, and he just so happens to align with the letter C for our ABC challenge. So I hope you brought extra lives, because we're gonna jump in and draw Cuphead. All right, jumping into the speed paint portion of this video, we're gonna be doing the sketching phase inside of Photoshop, and I just gotta say right off the bat, Cuphead, the character, the world, just all of it really resonates with me. Like, this stuff is right up my alley. I love drawing characters like this, the really simplistic characters with a lot of expression, a lot of personality, and I just had a lot of fun. In fact, it's the personality that gave me a lot of trouble, because you're gonna see that I kind of start off with this very, like, he's trying to aim for something, he's kind of doing like this run and gun approach, but I eventually change my mind and give him a much more sarcastic, snarky look and pose. And a lot of that is due to, if you look at the characters that this game is portraying from, you know, the 1930s animated characters, we're talking like Oswald, Felix, and even Bimbo, the dog from Betty Boop. A lot of those characters are really snarky, trickster kind of characters, and often they're not the nicest of characters. So they had to give them like antagonists that were even worse. And for Cuphead, he literally is fighting the devil. So the story kind of goes that him and his buddy Mugman, which is basically just kind of like a blue version of Cuphead, they go to a casino and they gamble their souls away to the devil. So talk about an antagonist to go with the snarkiness of Cuphead. Like, I had to draw the devil's gonna be in this. I mean, why not, right? We've never drawn on this channel, we've never drawn the character with their villain. So I thought this would be a fun approach. Not only that, but I had like this composition in mind where the devil's kind of like looming over Cuphead. So I had a lot of fun drawing him. He's really expressive and, again, really simplistic at the same time, which helps that expression shine through. So I like how this piece turns out, and I hope you all like it too. I can't wait to play this game. It is next on my list after Sonic Mania, and I know a lot of other channels are playing it, but like, I love animation. So to be able to play a game that like pays so much tribute to the animation industry of that time, like, I don't know, just it makes me excited, because I feel like a lot of that stuff has kind of been forgotten about. And one character in particular that I've always been a huge fan of ever since I kind of like learned of his existence, and I've talked about this before, but it's Oswald the Rabbit. Like, Oswald the Rabbit, for those of you that don't know, was basically the original version of Mickey Mouse. Before Mickey, there was Oswald, and we would have still had Oswald potentially, but the rights and basically Walt's entire team was taken away from him. So on the train ride back from New York, which a long time ago, you know, back in this day, California really wasn't a thing yet. Like, it was obviously a state, but the animation industry and the film industry, it just wasn't there yet. It was all still in New York. So basically on the trip back from New York, Walt sat down with his artist of Iworks and Walt's wife, and they basically came up with Mickey on the way back to California. So if it wasn't for Oswald being like all the rights for him being taken away from Walt, we probably would still have Oswald. So I've got like this, I forget what they call it. I don't know if it's like the Diamond Collection or something like that, but it's basically just like a collection of all the, or at least most of the old cartoons. And I really enjoy watching that kind of stuff and seeing just how animation has evolved from like those days. Because if you look at some of those 1930s, 1940s cartoons, they are just bizarre. Like they are on a whole higher level of strange, and often the characters don't even like really have structure. like they have their basic shapes, but their proportions get all out of whack, and like they're really like, I don't know the best way to describe it. Almost like everything's made out of those like pool tubes, you know, those like those foam like tubes, because everything just has like the waggly arm approach. So it's really fun to watch how we've gone from that to like really, especially if you take it in terms of Disney, you go from like this like wacky waving inflatable arm 2-man approach to this really rigid structured approach. And now we see a lot of that kind of coming back, especially if you look at the new like Mickey Mouse shorts. They got like a retro style to them. They were kind of bringing that like loosey goosey kind of approach again, which is really fun. And they exaggerate the squash and stretch, and they don't go quite as weird as some of the original cartoons, but except for Goofy. You look at Goofy's character design in those series, in those shorts, he looks like he has done some stuff. And I like, he's done some stuff in a back alley. Like, I do not like the way Goofy looks in those shorts. He is creepy as heck. But let's see some other cartoons. I talked about Bimbo the Dog, which if you don't know who Bimbo is, it's probably for good reason. Like, who would have thought that a character named Bimbo wouldn't go over well? So Bimbo the Dog was the character that preceded Betty Boop. And Betty Boop, actually, her original incarnation was a dog-like character who was kind of the sidekick to Bimbo, but they eventually made her a human, and she instantly took off. Like, she instantly reached kind of like this fame over the original character, and everyone gravitated towards Betty Boop instead. So eventually Bimbo was just kind of turned into the sidekick character himself, and I think in the more, I don't want to say like the later years of Betty Boop, I guess I would say, he's been completely re-envisioned as just like a dog character. So like not like a humanoid dog character, but like a regular cartoon dog character. It's so difficult to explain. So he basically went from Goofy status to Pluto status. So I don't know how else to describe it, but I just think it's interesting that he kind of started off that way. Back to the drawing, you'll now see that I have changed the pose pretty significantly, and like always, I have brought the sketch into Flash/Animate to do the vector line work, because I wanted a really clean, I wanted really clean lines, because these characters are really simplistic, and the lines, each line means a lot when you have a very simplistic character. That's something that I always find really interesting. If you look at really simplistic character designs versus supremely detailed designs, you can kind of get away with, you know, a loose line here and there and like the extremely detailed stuff, because there's so much for your eye to look at. But for these kind of characters, like every line counts. So it's, for me, you'll see I go back and forth on like redrawing the same line over and over and over again. That's the one thing I really struggle with inside of Photoshop, because I could be on my tablet like literally just drawing the line over and over, and like, nope, that's not right, no, that's not right, and I'm just drawing the same line, here we go, nope, still not right, and it just drives me crazy. So I'm like, all right, just throw it in Flash, and that way I can literally control the line. And you'll see that he's now got that very sarcastic kind of look to him. What's another character kind of from that era? Oh, Felix the Cat. You don't know Felix the Cat. He was just a black cat, and he sometimes had like this yellow like purse, this giant bag that he would carry with him. And there was actually a Felix the Cat movie, and it was awful. Like, it's on a whole nother level of awful. It took like the really weird concepts from that era and like tried to quote unquote modernize it, but it was just weird. Like, the plot didn't make any sense. It almost felt like that Sonic 06 game where it's just like Felix is now in a completely different world that literally is not attached to him in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't make sense why he's there. You don't understand the motives of any of the characters, and there just happens to be a princess whose tears can power machinery and teleport characters across space and time, because it's a cartoon, right? So anything should go, but that's not true. Sometimes you just need a little bit of structure in your story for us to get invested in it. Like, sometimes you just gotta pull it back a little bit, and that was one thing. I found interesting. Ub Iwerks, I believe that's how you say his last name. He was the illustrator and animator for pretty much all the original Mickey Mouse cartoons. If you saw, Steamboat Willie, if you saw, I think Plain Crazy was the first Mickey Mouse short, all of that was Like, literally, I think Plain Crazy, he did all that just by himself. Like, this guy was like the pinnacle of illustration and animation just meld into one. Like, if you look at some of his drawings, they're so good, and he doesn't get the credit that he deserves, and it's really upsetting, because a lot of people think like, oh, Walt made Mickey Mouse. I'm like, yeah, he had a hand in it, but Ub's the one who drew him, much like he drew Oswald before Mickey. So this guy deserves a lot more credit than he gets. So that's one thing that I try to let people know if they're interested in learning about Disney specifically. It's go way back, because this guy, after he was done with art and animation, he moved on, and I think he worked with Imagineering for a while, and he helped create a lot of the effects. I think he helped create some of the effects in the Mary Poppins movie, the original one. I say the original one because I'm sure there'll be a sequel one day, so it'll have to be Michael Rooker's Mary Poppins. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all! So he helped create some of those effects. I know he worked with Imagineering for a while. The guy was just super cool, but once he left Disney, he went off into Crazyville, and some of his cartoons were just really out there. I tried watching some of them. I'm like, whoa, I think Walt was kind of your rock, and without your rock, you're just going crazy. But it was still the artistry was there, the talent was there, and he's a really cool person to read up on. I should maybe I'll just link to it's let's see, I Works. It's a very interesting. His name is very interestingly spelt. It's I Works, IWERKS. And the guy's just wicked talented. So if you want to read up on some animation history, I definitely recommend checking out maybe his Wikipedia page, or there's a good little article on cartoonbrew.com, and it's 5 reasons why Mickey Mouse co-creator of iWorks was awesome. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking that article out. It's a really interesting read. He's just a very cool guy. So now we're moving on into the shading phase, which I didn't want to do really hardcore shading in this because it's so simplistic, and because it's supposed to be one of these 1930s animated, shorts or cartoons, whatever you want to call them. They didn't have shading. If they did, it was in really short supply. So unless it was a movie poster or something you would see, in the cinemas, because a lot of these cartoons would play as shorts before actual movies. So I decided I was just going to do one layer of shading and really kind of mute it, not have it stand out quite as much. And one layer shading, I mean one layer for the shadows, one layer for the highlights, and the highlights were really limited. And for the devil, I just used a lighter version of the background. And you'll see that I've kind of changed how the devil's positioned. And when I brought it back into Photoshop, I stretched, I cannot say words today, I stretched the proportions out even more. And to kind of use that film grain approach and really kind of blow things out, which is just using different levels of blur and then erasing kind of the inner part of the character, so just the outer edges are blurred, to kind of give it that film grain approach, that really blown out projector look that a lot of these cartoons had back in the day. And then of course add a vignette to top it off, and that will be it for our Cuphead drawing. So we'll go ahead and jump to the final look. And that is the final piece for our character representing the letter C in the ABC challenge. I'm curious, who would you have picked for the letter C? And while you're down in the comments below, leave a suggestion for what character you would like to see drawn for the letter D in the next ABC challenge episode. I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your continued support. You are all amazing. If you want to see more videos on this channel, check out that video to the top right. It's a video I put together of another video game character, a certain green dinosaur. And while we're on the topic of video games, if you want to check out my gaming channel, there's a video at the bottom right that is my Sonic Mania playthrough. I hope you're having an amazing day, and as always, I will chat with you later.